What are shifters in Omegaverse? Okay. This is not a lecture about the Omegaverse and all that crap. So this is going to be a long story short from someone who has observed it and just like, meh. The Omegaverse essentially is the rundown idea of a wolf mentality pack, where it's a small community of people who can transform into wolves, and they literally go through the wolf pecking order of alpha, beta to omega. And it's literally used in the ideas of romance, specifically smut. A lot of it yaoi. A lot of it BL. But it's not debunked science. No, it's pure. Yeah, not debunked science. I know, right? It's basically the idea of a small pack community of shifters, and shifters are basically people who have, I'm gonna say it, they have wolves inside their heads, or they're fused with their wolves, and like they praise a moon goddess or like a moon god sometimes, and like they have the same heat cycles as wolves, and like they have fated mates and all that stuff. Like they like a person within that little community is like their mate, and 9 times out of 10 those mates reject each other, and like it gets nasty and it gets really weird, and like omegas are slaves, like sex slaves to the pack and all that crap. And it's very odd, and it's great for fictitious use. It's great for really like diving and digging your claws into fiction if you really like werewolves, I guess. And it's like, no, apparently omegas are like the bottom tier in the Omegaverse. Yeah, it's like one of the 7 circles that I walk into, me trying to explain what the Omegaverse is, even though it within itself it doesn't make sense. It's like okay, you know what? Sorry, Katie. I'm reading it. I'm sorry. I'm reading it. I'm sorry. I have to so that way people understand. Like, here. I read this to Brian, and Brian agrees that this is the perspective that is meant to, like, this is what is meant to happen. So, context of this section of this book, which you know what? Let me go ahead and just because why is it what is already in? Hold on. No! There we go. Okay, so hold on. Hold on. We're doing this. Oops, that's broken. Yeah, so also if you're a writer, you understand why this is funny. If you're a writer, you understand why this is funny. Let me go ahead and pull up. Sorry, Katie. I apologize. Go for it. I agree. Thank you. I'm just like, I'm sorry. At this point, I have to like really express the mentality behind what's going on, because like this, it's sometimes it's a little too ridiculous. Let me go ahead and. Yeah, I'm trying to pull up some music that would make sense. Not a lot of music would make sense, but I'm gonna try. Maybe this might work. Yes, I'm using Seduce Me music. No, I don't care. Alright. There we go. Okay. Context for this section. Context for this section of the book. Tanya has a roommate named Haley. And Haley is a very beautiful, like stupidly beautiful, blonde hair, blue-eyed. Is it blue-eyed? Just make sure I just double verify. This is a blue-eyed. Yeah, emerald eyes. She has like blonde hair, emerald eyes, country style, yet somehow city girl. Like this is essentially her roommate. And this is how she describes it. Like, for some reason, this girl lights up a room with her smile. Her laughter is infectious. It's all of the stereotypical bullshit you'd hear from the protagonist of a romance novel. And Tanya is seeing all of this. So Tanya sees all of these things. And so, but the thing is, she likes Haley, and they become really good friends. To the point where, because they're in college together, they actually get an apartment together in their junior year. So they have an apartment together. That is the context. That is the context of what I can give. Okay? Okay. Here we go. I gotta scroll all the way through the fucking chapter. Okay. And let me know if the music's too loud, let me know, but otherwise, this is where we get it. I marched home, exhausted from the day. It was my heavier class day, and I only had one small break at the cafeteria for food. I was hungry, tired, and eager to get home. I knew Haley had one class that aligned with my last one, but she usually got to the apartment before I did. Haley was indeed home before me, but she wasn't inside. As I climbed the stairs to our floor, I witnessed my roommate being pinned to our apartment door by a large man. He was probably a year older than us. Black frizzy hair and angry amber eyes with a scruffy face. Despite his unkempt face, he was dressed pretty okay in black jeans and a plaid button-up. Handsome looks aside, the confrontation looked very non-consensual. "No, I don't want to," Haley squeaked out. "I said you're coming home, my Luna," the man growled. I didn't think twice. He had Haley practically pinned to the door, so I ran up and swung my closed umbrella down on one of his ankles. His knee buckled and the man let out a yelp. I turned my umbrella around, hooked the curve around his throat, and pulled him down and away from Haley. "Fuck!" he barked breathlessly. As he landed on the ground, I slipped the hook from his neck and pinned it against his throat. I wasn't going to choke him out, but he was going to stay down. His eyes quivered as he looked up at me in stunned surprise. "Hey, asshole! I don't care who you think you are, but she's my roommate, and I've had a very rough day," I threatened. I leaned my body into the umbrella before taking out my phone and snapping a picture of his face. The flash was on, so the light cracked his expression and made him hiss. "Haley, get the door. Whoever the hell you are, I suggest leaving and not coming back." Haley let out a whimper before turning to the door and unlocking it with her keys. And unlocking it with her keys. The man at my feet then bared his teeth at me like a dog, snarling to intimidate me. I let an unimpressed purse of my lips grace my face. I was absolutely done that day. My classes dragged longer than they needed to, and I had come home to my roommate being assaulted. Needless to say, I was frustrated. "You want to act like a dog?" I grumbled. Without hesitation, I pulled up the umbrella and slammed it back down on his crotch. Bullseye. The man practically screamed from the pain as the varnished wood impacted his dick and balls. "Get fixed like one." With that, I turned and grabbed Haley, pulling her into the apartment and slamming the door. "Call the cops, Haley," I instructed, as I locked the 3 latches in the front door. I turned, expecting to see Haley do as I said, but I found her standing there shaking with her eyes shut. Instead of being upset, I sighed, trying to calm down. She obviously had to have been shaken from the attack. I unlocked my phone and began to dial. "Never mind, I got it." "No!" Haley cried out before slapping my phone out of my hands. As my cell landed and skidded across the floor, I glared up at Haley incredulously. "The fuck, Haley?" I shouted, moving to reach for my phone. However, Haley stopped me and grabbed my shoulders, almost digging her nails into my skin. "Ow! You can't call the police!" Haley begged, dropping to her knees in front of me. With her grip on my arms, I almost fell with her, but she relaxed her nails and moved her hands to lock her fingers around my wrists. "Please, Tanya!" "Why? You literally just got assaulted!" "It's not his fault!" "The fuck does that mean?" If this was a new form of gaslighting, this was the stupidest example of it. I came home to see a man growling into Haley's face, yet here she was defending him as if it was deserved. It wasn't like she was denying the assault accusation. She clearly knew he assaulted her. Yet, why was she trying to stop me from getting justice? Was he an ex of hers? Just please don't do anything! Haley cried out, lowering her head in some form of shame. I was stunned, but I wasn't having it. Haley had to have been in some form of denial that needed to be turned around. Haley? I need more than just please. What the hell happened? I demanded, dropping down onto my knees to level myself with Haley. The whimpering girl in question looked up at me with sad eyes, her lip quivering. It had to have been tough for her, but I wasn't going to relent just because she was hanging on to some internal battle. The man's behavior was unacceptable. Haley? He's my... Haley muttered, finally releasing my wrists and covering her face. Ex-boyfriend? Stalker? I listed, attempting to help. Mate, Haley whispered. I must have heard her incorrectly. Ex-roommate? I was instantly confused. The only roommate she ever had was me. He couldn't have been at any... No, not roommate. Haley combed her fingers into her hair and let out a shaky sigh before meeting my gaze in helplessness. He's my mate. Mate? The fuck? She wasn't making any sense. She wasn't a dog, though the man definitely acted like one. I had to be calm, as I didn't want to traumatize her more. But Haley wasn't making it easy to sympathize with her. What do you mean, mate, Haley? I gently pressed. Mate, fated lover, bound for eternity because the moon goddess likes to play jokes on me more than she already has, Haley rambled, throwing her hands up in the air. He's the one I'm supposed to be with for the rest of my life because my wolf can't stop calling to him. And now I was hearing nonsense. She was acting like she was in some sort of fairy tale, like it was some sort of cursed destiny. We lived in reality where that kind of crap didn't fly. Also, her wolf? She didn't have any pets. This had to have been a mental break. I thought I could run away and start new, but now he's here, and I... Haley lamented, sliding down to sit on the floor and bringing her knees to her chest. I can't find a witch willing to break our bond. What do I do? Haley? I began. This was too weird to take seriously. But Haley acted as if this was meant to be taken so. This wasn't a cute prank if this was one. A man got cracked in the dick for it. Why was she on some sort of drugs? She didn't use, at least I assumed as such. Tanya shall become the witch to break the car. Oh, fucking Lamau. Why was this happening and where was the logic? I pressed my lips together, trying to remain civil and not be the asshole friend that just sends her to the cycle. As her friend, I wanted to hear her out, but I felt that it was only going to get stranger. Please elaborate. Haley locked her gaze onto me, but continued to remain in her fetal position. I'm not what you think I am, Tanya. That was kind of obvious when you said the man who assaulted you was your mate, like an animal. It's true, though. I am begging you to explain to me how. I felt my own desperation for logic creep into my emotions. Maybe she was part of a cult that brainwashed her. Perhaps it was some sort of fantasy roleplay she was into, and she was going all out on it. Anyone who heard this probably agreed with me. This was lunacy. Luna, there you go. You got the joke. Haley closed her eyes and sighed again before opening her eyes and scaring the metaphorical shit out of me. What were once beautiful emerald eyes had become tinted in an eerie golden glow. That was some magic trick. She didn't have contacts, and there was no way she could have put them on while I stared her down. I fell back and scooted away from Haley, extremely unappreciative of the little show. But Haley could only frown at me. I'm a werewolf, Tanya, Haley confessed. I instantly wanted to tell her she was full of shit. Werewolf? The fictional creatures that came out during the full moon? The antithesis of vampires? Another fictional paranormality? This was too much. I couldn't not swallow it, despite wanting to be a good friend. And I'm a mermaid, I sarcastically grumbled. I'm serious! Haley cried out. Are you hearing yourself? I practically shouted, causing Haley to flinch. The gold color that had taken over her irises faded back to their normal green shades as Haley's expression dropped to one of extreme dismay. Werewolves aren't real, Haley. They literally only exist in fantasy books. It's by design. We do exist. Haley fought back, her face now shifting to glare in my direction. This was probably the first time she acted this way towards me, as we usually talked out any disagreements we had. Still, this was completely abnormal and out of the blue. There had to be logic somewhere, and Haley had to have some grounded reason for acting like she did. The world was opening to more ideas than just man, woman, and non-binary. Furries and people who identified as kins to animals and fictional characters existed, and I wasn't one to shame anyone for who they were as long as they didn't hurt anyone. Was she confusing the terms, entitling herself a werewolf instead of wolfkin? She did have a strong affinity to wolves. Are you confusing werewolves for wolfkin? I accused. No! Haley barked, a growl seeping into her throat at the interjection. I was even more taken aback at her defensiveness. But my shock slowly melted to fear as I watched Haley's skin begin to pale and grow fur. Haley's face began to contort, with her lower jaw elongating into a snout. Her ears somehow slid up the sides of her face and began to mold onto the top of her head into triangles. She placed her hands on the ground in front of me, and I could only stare as they slowly shrank and became furry paws on our wooden floor. Her body pulsed as fur continued to grow along her body, and she became less of a humanoid and more of a canine. I felt like I was losing my mind as I watched Haley transform, but my body refused to move. As Haley presented herself as a fully fledged white wolf to me, she stepped toward me and growled in my face. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't fiction. Haley, who had turned into a wolf, looked ready to bite my head off. I was frozen stiff. My entire perception of reality was broken with seeing my innocent roommate turn into a wolf in front of my very eyes. This was not a trick of the light, nor was it some dream I was having. I was in reality, and Haley was a werewolf. And that's my book. And that's like a small little sliver of the book. This one will be 16 plus, so it won't have any sort of sexual scenes. There will be no erotica in the book. But this is the second book that I'm making as alongside Obedience, the series, should it go well. It's literally it's the perspective of like seeing the shifter romance happening right in front of you. And it's when we read it, we kind of accept it and we were like, okay, sure, it's a fictitious book. What happens when you're literally watching it happen in front of your eyes? When you're literally watching the romance thing happen in front of your eyes? So yeah, it's a very much a commentary on that. It's a commentary on the genre of Omegaverse in the eyes of someone who doesn't understand Omegaverse.